Hey there and welcome back to another Dragon Prince video. And today I want to circle back and talk about the character of Viren. Now, for the first 3 seasons of the show, Viren's been presented as the primary antagonist, attempting to thwart the heroes at every turn. When we first meet him, he's the slightly antagonistic advisor to the king, and slowly over time we see him go from a man who does immoral things for the greater good of humanity, to a deranged loony who mind controls his people and tries to murder the children of his supposed best friend. So as a character, he's really hit rock bottom on the morality scale. And with his death at the end of season 3, it kind of felt like a closing the book moment on his character. You had new villains in Erebos and Claudia kind of set up, and the story could move past this guy that had pretty much hit the expiration date of his story arc. And so, that's it for him, right? Wrong. Because in the closing moments of the season, we see that Claudia revives Viren using dark magic. So, I guess this means he goes back to being a full-time villain and angst machine like he was in the first 3 seasons? And honestly, I'm not so sure about whether that's going to be the case. Looking back on that scene, it kind of looks like he's a bit shocked and appalled at being brought back to life. A little bit scared almost, and a little bit remorseful. It's almost like that when he was doing his best impression of Mufasa, he had a realization that he was acting like a bit of a dweeb, and had done some pretty unforgivable and heinous things. That in the end, his life amounted to not much at all besides being an evil murderer and traitor, and eventually a red smear at the foot of a mountain. In any other story, he would stay dead, and Erebos would groom Claudia to avenge him and become an even darker villain for the heroes to contend with. But instead, he's come back, with an expression that looks like his perspective has shifted, even just slightly. I feel like at least he's reconsidering his choices. So, in my opinion, this is the prime time for a bit of a redemption arc, because if they bring him back to make him the same guy or just more crazy, I feel like they could have accomplished that without giving him a death fake out. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that all the characters have to just forget that this guy is the worst and ignore all the truly awful things he's done. I mean, let's just take a quick look. He murders a magical creature unprovoked, which leads to the death of the queen. Depending on your point of view, he potentially outright murders her for his own agenda. He betrays her memory by using her last breath as a weapon of violence against the Dragon King. He either outright kills or imprisons Rayla's parents. He steals the dragon egg to use in dark magic, basically stealing a fetus from a grieving widow. Really classy guy, am I right? He then probably betrays his supposed best friend because he's upset with him, sends his own son to murder children he's grown up with, then gaslights him when he tries to tell Claudia. He creates a divide between his own children. He overthrows Ezran in a coup. Again, this is his best friend's son. He assassinates other human rulers to organize a genocidal war effort, invades Zadia with the intention of murdering children and baby dragons, disowns his son, sacrifices his army and turns them into monsters, and lets a giant creepy worm caterpillar elf hybrid thing control his life. All for humanity's supposed greater good. And after all that, I think it would be a bit ridiculous to try and expect the audience to just accept that everything between them is going to be all good. No matter what he does, he's still a turd of a person. You don't necessarily need to redeem him in that way, and honestly, I think it would be a bit of a mistake to even try to do that. But I think the way they should frame his redemption is by trying to turn his daughter away from using dark magic and reuniting with her brother. I think it just makes the most sense. If Viren's arc has taught us anything, it's that dark magic is ultimately a corrupting influence. While you start off using it with the best of intentions, eventually it overwhelms you and consumes you. And we do see this with Viren. In the flashback sequences, he doesn't really seem so bad, really. He makes some suspicious and questionable decisions, yeah, but he does seem like a nice enough guy, I guess. And then, even at the start of season 1, he isn't some mustache-twirling, monocle-wearing supervillain. It's as he keeps pushing further and further down the path of dark magic with Erebos' help that he becomes more and more deranged and twisted. But then, after his death, it looks like he's gotten some clarity. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I think that maybe dying and coming back has the potential to sort of reset the corruption, so to speak. He's still bad, but less bad. Willing to evaluate his life and what he considers important, at least. And then on top of this, in his character backstory, I think the primary reason he even started using dark magic in the first place was to save his son from a deadly disease. In essence, to save his family. And even though this did eventually lead to his wife leaving him, he still started out with the intention of saving his family from ruin. And then, over time, his continued use of it led to the complete destruction of their family unit. So I think it would be a kind of fitting end to his arc for him to try and reunite this family, even if he's not part of it anymore. So really, if they do go down this route, he has two tasks: turn Claudia away from dark magic, and reconcile with his son. And honestly, I think the reconciliation is going to be the easy part of the story. Soren loves his dad, that's pretty clear, and it took a lot for him to betray him in the first place. I could see him wanting to repair things and being open to Viren's attempts to change. I think the main problem is going to be Claudia. After all, she used some pretty intense and powerful dark magic to bring her dad back to life. So from her perspective, why should she stop using it? It's useful. And then why should she want to try and reconcile with her brother? After all, he's the one that left the family. He's the traitor. From her perspective, she's perfectly in the right and it's Soren who's wrong. Plus, on top of that, soon they're going to be stuck with Erebos, who I guess is growing himself a new body? Or turning into a giant butterfly? Who really knows? Either way, I doubt he's going to be an advocate for them all to play happy families, and will keep pushing for them to use darker and darker spells, and if anything, he's probably going to be the one that kills Viren, who honestly will probably die in pretty predictable fashion trying to save Soren and his friends. Basically, he's going to do the old-fashioned Severus Snape maneuver, except cut out the bit about being a simp for years and years. That's not relevant here. So he gets his heroic redemption in the eyes of his children, dies for good this time, and leaves behind his fractured family. Because honestly, even though he gets that redemption ending, I doubt he gets the happy ending. His family's still destroyed. Claudia will probably still use dark magic and blame her brother and the princes for Erebos killing her dad, and also hate Erebos on top of that, leading to a very, very, very fractured dynamic going forward between all the different characters. But with all that being said, those are just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of my theory? Think Viren's going to get some more depth, or just hit him with the villain stick again? I'm curious for some more thoughts, so make sure to leave a comment and let me know.